Dark magic is one of the most mysterious concepts in the world of the Dragon Prince, and we won't be able to learn more about it until the next season, Book 7, which itself is titled after dark magic. That being said, this season did give us a lot of new information to help us theorize, and gave us some interesting nods to real-life ideas of dark magic in certain cultic systems dating back thousands of years. My name is Timeblind Deepcut, subscribe, and consider hanging out in our Cartoon Universe Discord server for more Dragon Prince conversations, link in the pinned comment down below. Now, in this show, magic is something of a natural force that arguably has no real definition. We understand what magic is in our world as a fantasy tool, where simply magic makes something happen that is otherwise impossible, but in the show, it's practically a science. Magic is derived from 6 primal sources: the sky, the moon, the sun, the earth itself, the water, or ocean really, and finally, the stars above. The elements that certain species can wield all break off from these 6 primal sources, which are each known to gather around a certain nexus, such as the Great Lake that captures the reflection of the moon, making this reflection its nexus in Zadia. Creatures seem to naturally evolve around certain elements and develop an ability to connect to a primal force based on that, whether it's the more advanced species like elves and dragons, or the smaller animals and bugs and such. Humans are, interestingly, a very sentient species with a mind that is not all that different from the elves or dragons, or perhaps even the fabled unicorns. But unlike all of these other species that are able to communicate with each other and the humans just never developed any obvious attachment to any primal source. Magic thus does seem to exist as a pre-existing thing that all of these primal forces tap into themselves, as magical beings like elves were able to evolve into 6 different races connected to one primal source each. Dark magic, on the other hand, is not a primal source, but is referred to as dark magic because it requires the death of a pre-existing magical creature, where their ability to connect to one of the 6 primal sources can be redirected around the whims of the person wielding it. This presents in the show as the mage speaking their desire in reverse English with their eyes turning black. The exact origins of dark magic are a bit blurry, and in a recent interview with Hailey, Aaron E. Haas admitted that the exact way that Leola gave magic to humans and how that evolved into dark magic was left intentionally vague, but we can get some ideas in the show and the expanded materials. Within the show, dark magic is explained as being the fault of Aaravos, with the dark mage Zard receiving his dark magic staff from Aaravos. Sol Regum was the ruler at this time, and when he learned what Zard and the people of his city in Ilarion were doing, he threatened to destroy the entire city with everyone in it. Zard refused to give up dark magic, so Ilarion was burned to the ground, and Zard blinded Sol Regum. Following this, humans as a whole would be banished to the west, away from the magical elves and other creatures, where they could do less damage to the magical species of Zadia. A lot has to have happened, however, between one man like Zard receiving a staff and the entire race of humans being banished to the west, however. And we get more details on that through the story of Leola in Book 6, as well as the expanded materials outside of the TV series. In the novelization of Season 1, written by Aaron E. Haas himself, the opening narration of the series is expanded upon, explaining that it was unicorns who first taught magic to humans, being compassionate creatures who wanted to help them. The humans, however, discovered a quicker and easier way to use magic, which is, of course, the killing of the magical creatures to use their magic for themselves. This narration is signed as being written by Aaravos, who is said to never truly lie, but only give information that can mislead. In Book 6, of course, we learn that by unicorns, Aaravos here means his daughter Leola, who he called Unicorn, and who he saw as the most compassionate creature in all of Zadia. It's not expressly stated in the show how Leola taught humans magic, but Aaron E. Haas in his recent interview with Star-Touched elf Hailey explained that it could have been as simple as Leola just teaching a small trick to her human friend, similar to the petty tricks that Aaravos talks about with the Council. But the Merciful One claims that they and Aaravos both saw what would come of this simple act, which is absolute chaos. Now, despite their reliance on existing magical creatures, this does seem to tap into something magical within the humans, as it corrupts both their body and their soul. When it comes to the body, the act of using something dead for magic seems to kill the human a tiny bit. Humans who use dark magic have a lingering smell of death on them, something only the dragons can detect outright. It destroys the body, with one of the most obvious effects being the gray hair that dark mages begin to grow, part of their body beginning to die. Viren's face of course got its scars, and over time, dark magic just seems to bring you closer and closer to death. It's not that it makes you ill, I would say, but more so like there is some sort of life force that you are giving up a piece of when you do a dark spell, and there's only so far you can go before your body and soul succumb to it entirely. But where exactly does this stem from? It's not just the body, as we said, but the soul seems to be really important to the nature of dark magic as well. Callum doesn't have Viren or Claudia's level of dark magic, but that doesn't mean his soul hasn't become very tainted. Callum had managed to bounce back from the path of dark magic early on, but that didn't stop his soul from facing extreme darkness. In Book 6, Callum and Rayla met the Celestial Elves, who are able to look into the nature of the people surrounding them when they take off their blindfolds on the moonless night. Here, Cosmo becomes time blind and sees into the inner nature of his sister and Rayla, both of whom he describes as being people filled with light. Callum, however, is said to have nothing but darkness. Callum himself may not have done nearly as much as Viren in the ways of dark magic, but it was enough that Aaravos has been able to manipulate him, eventually controlling his body in his sleep. Cosmo and Astrid were able to teach Callum a special ritual that allowed him to find his light and purify his soul, but it came with some interesting clauses. By doing this ritual, Callum is able to see what is good in him, which isn't just Rayla, but also his love for Rayla, and that is able to take over his soul again and undo the dark control of Aaravos. However, Cosmo warned that if he were ever to do dark magic again, it would corrupt him entirely, and that could mean complete control by Aaravos or even death. Callum has promised never to use dark magic again, but why would the dark magic consume him after this, and why does it give Aaravos in particular the ability to control a human? After all, he is a star-touched elf and one who mastered the other 5 primal sources. Why should dark magic have some tie to him in particular? Now, we can't say exactly where this will go, but it is based on mind-boggling real-life mythology and lore that may give us some hints. In real life, the idea that humans aren't ready for certain kinds of magic was found in multiple cultures of the ancient world. The most obvious of these are the Greek mythos and the Jewish mythos, from which we get the later Christian tradition surrounding the same ideas. It is these two mythological paths that Aaron Ehaus and Justin Richmond specifically cite as important to the mystery of Aaravos.
I mean, you've heard us talk about Aaravos before, so you know we've talked about this, like, is he Lucifer or Prometheus, right? His relationship with, humanity and the gifts and sharing that he has had historically have been, you can interpret it different ways.
Yeah.
Judaism is essentially founded on the idea that some sort of Luciferian figure once gave forbidden knowledge to humans, a fallen angel who rebelled against God to corrupt humanity, though the name Lucifer itself, meaning Lightbringer, wouldn't be adopted until the later Christian tradition. This figure appears first in the book of Genesis with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Here, they eat from the tree of forbidden knowledge, after being tempted by a cunning or clever serpent. From here, man enters a corrupted state with the majority of humans constantly falling to the negative teachings of the forbidden knowledge. In the later story of Noah, we get the mention of the sons of God, who took human daughters as their wives and gave birth to a race called the Nephilim. In the book of Enoch, these sons of God are explained as giving corrupting knowledge similar to the serpent. One such example was Azazel, who was said to teach the humans the art of metalworking to create weapons. This would be what led to the conflicts and wars of the world, humans fighting each other instead of working together. Additionally, the wives were taught hexes that humans simply weren't ready to comprehend. These fallen angels are described as being sent down to Earth to teach humans and guide them to a proper future, one where they seemingly would have been ready to have this knowledge one day. In the Garden of Eden, after all, there was that fruit of forbidden knowledge, not just for decoration, but because it was one day meant to be eaten. The eating of this fruit and the introduction of sin into the world did not lead to God abandoning the people, but rather he created a new plan because of this sin that would lead to the restoration of harmony on Earth. In Jewish tradition, the fruit of forbidden knowledge has an association with the gift of prophecy, the ability to see the future, with this power in particular being something humans were not ready for because of how it could be exploited. The current age we live in is supposed to be the outcome of cultures in the past abusing that power taught by the fallen angels, with a return of prophecy and humans being led by God in the world to come, 6,000 years after our expulsion from Eden. It is this initial tainting of humans by this sort of dark magic that we were not ready for that is said to lead humans to our eventual spiritual and physical evolution to fully using that gift of prophecy properly. This also has echoes in the Greek tradition of Prometheus, with it being a counterpoint to the Luciferian tradition, as Aaron and Justin explained in that interview. In the Greek mythology, Prometheus is a god who favors the humans that he has created over the gods that the humans were created to serve. Over time, he begins to make it so that the humans have the good meat that they farm, with the gods getting just the bones and fat. To spite the gods further, Prometheus steals fire from Zeus and the other gods and gives it to the humans, this being seen as a Luciferian light of knowledge. For this, Prometheus is chained to the earth, and humans are given sin and suffering in the form of Pandora's box. The humans and Prometheus are both punished here, similar to how in the story of the Garden of Eden, it's the humans Adam and Eve and the serpent who are both punished. In Greek mythology, however, Prometheus is said to have only done this because he had foreseen that Zeus would one day forgive him, due to them both working together in the war against their parents, the Titans. Prometheus itself means forethought, and Prometheus is portrayed in works such as Prometheus Bound as having a deep sense of psychic ability that allows him to see the future, who, like Aaravos, was chained to the earth for gifting humans certain forbidden magics. Aaravos himself is one of these star-touched elves who seem to represent the other gods, with Aaravos and these elves having such long lifespans that they are able to see the future, essentially. Lucifer, or the Serpent, is ultimately seen as a fallen figure who seeks to ruin humanity to anger the gods. However, to the Greek people, Prometheus is portrayed much more as a hero, a figure who gave them knowledge that would one day set everyone free. It's important to remember that, like the prophets of Israel, the Greeks also had their own culture of prophecy surrounding the Oracle of Delphi, with the gift of prophecy being seen as something they received from the gods. Is Aaravos then a Luciferian figure who simply wants humans to corrupt and become dark in order to spite the celestial elves, or is he perhaps Promethean, seeing an outcome where he will be forgiven after being chained to the earth, with the humans he adores also rising to a new level with him? If Luciferian, the story of Aaravos' plan seems rather simple. He is mad that his daughter is dead, so he will continue to corrupt the humans to hunt the other magical species to absolute extinction, in order to do whatever damage he can to the star-touched elves. If Prometheus, however, things get interestingly complex. Aaravos now seems to be hurting the humans, who Prometheus saw as his beloved creatures that he wanted to support over the gods by giving them better food. It wouldn't make sense for him then to give them fire if he thought whatever would happen to him and the humans wouldn't lead to an ultimate good. Because of Prometheus' actions, sin and suffering were released on the world in the form of Pandora's box, but because of his foresight, this would lead to an ultimately good ending. Not one where the gods are just spited, but where the humans are elevated. And the way Aaravos raises Claudia up at the end of Book 6 makes me feel that this is exactly what Aaravos intends to do. In the story of Leola, Aaravos was told by the Merciful One that he too had seen the chaos that was going to come because of Leola's decision. But Leola loved humans and taught magic ultimately because she was compassionate towards them. Aaravos was meant to have a detached approach to Xadia from here, but if he really wanted to make things right by his daughter, then what he has to do is lead humans towards a better outcome than what she had initially set up for them. By teaching humans like Zard and Vir in dark magic, he seems to be escalating the situation in Xadia, making elves and humans turn against each other. But is there a chance that this was the only timeline possible that would lead to someone like Callum being able to usher in an age of non-dark magic because of the 6 different magics that he was able to learn? Callum didn't just use a primal stone, he's managed to really tap into the different elements. But what if that's thanks to dark magic? Well, dark magic has left holes in his soul. Is it possible that this exposure to dark magic is what has made him become as powerful as he is? Is it through this that maybe he and his children will be able to eventually pass on their ability to other humans, as the entire species gradually becomes not just magical, but perhaps more magical than each of the species of elves, each being able to use the best of the 6 primal sources? This certainly seems like the outcome that Leola would have wanted, and one I could see Aaravos wanting for her as well, but it does leave the question of why Aaravos himself seems to gain control of people like Callum, and what the absolute corruption of Callum might mean. I can't imagine that they purified Callum's soul this season and made him swear never to do dark magic again at the risk of it corrupting his entire soul if that's not exactly what was going to happen in the very next season. I can see Callum making a sacrifice to use dark magic to save the ones he loves, particularly Rayla. This would lead to the absolute corruption or death of Callum, but that doesn't mean he couldn't be brought back. Right now, they are still in possession of one of the Quasar Diamonds, which are made of stardust. As the Merciful One says to Aaravos at the beginning of the season, we are all stardust, held together by love for an instant. If Callum's sacrifice had enough love and Rayla's love for him in return was strong enough, perhaps enough stardust could be used to bring Callum back from death and the absolute corruption of dark magic. But what do you guys think? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe because we have a few more Dragon Prince videos coming out for this season that you're not going to want to miss, including a full breakdown of what I think is going to happen in Season 7. See you guys then.